The National Association of Police Athletic Activities League's youth organization welcomes you to its From the Voices of Youth virtual town hall series presented by Microsoft and supported by Extended Stay America. We thank you as well as our panelists for joining today's town hall event and anxiously look forward to having some great discussion and learning from each other, all in the name of youth. So now let's get started and meet today's panelists.
And we got to come together as a people.
All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to welcome and thank everyone for tuning in for another version and another segment of From the Voices of Youth. This time we're coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee, and can't wait to get into this day, into this discussion. We have a great group of panelists that are with us. We also have an awesome moderator, Madison, that you guys are going to meet shortly as well. But I also want to thank, before we get going and get started, this would not be possible if it wasn't for some of our great supporters, such as Microsoft Corporation, Extended Stay America, Sports Engine, and a whole host of others. And I would be remiss if I didn't as well make sure that I mentioned, without the support of National PAL and our board of directors and all of our member chapters all across this country and even internationally, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for having all of them involved with us and this opportunity to be able to hear from our young people. So with that, we're going to get ready to get started. And I'm going to turn it over to the great hands of our moderator for the afternoon, Madison Smith. Madison, how about you come on in and introduce yourself? Let's get started. How about it?
Hello, my name is Madison Smith, and I am a 17-year-old senior at Germantown High School. I will be today's moderator, and I am a part of the Memphis PAL Youth Program. Additionally, I serve as an ambassador for the City of Memphis Office of Youth Services Memphis Ambassador Program, also known as MEP. I welcome you to today's youth panelists as they now introduce themselves. Thank you.
Hello, I am Ambassador Destiny Rayner. I am representing Memphis Ambassadors Program and Memphis PAL. I am a junior at Middle College High School.
Hey everybody, my name is Manuel Perez Salvador. I'm a student at White Station High School. I am with the City of Memphis Office of Youth Services, and today I represent this extension of the Memphis PAL program.
Hello everyone, my name is Nina Collymore. I am a proud member of the Memphis Ambassadors Program, as well as the Memphis Youth PAL Youth Program, and a senior at the Middle College High School. I am a change maker.
Now, I will proceed to welcome our other wonderful panelists for today, beginning with the Director of the Memphis Police Department, Michael Rawlings. Next, I will be introducing the Shelby County Sheriff, Floyd Bonner. Next, we have the Special Assistant to Mayor Jim Strickland, as well as the Director for the Memphis Office of Youth Services, Ike Griffith. And finally, we have former NBA Memphis Grizzlies player, Reverend Knight.
And before you get started and you go along, Madison, I just wanted to make everyone aware that unfortunately we had a last minute scheduling conflict with Mayor Strickland. So unfortunately, Mayor Strickland will not be with us today. But as everything else, the show will go on, and we're going to continue to have a great opportunity to be able to hear from the voices of our young people. So with that, let's go, Madison. Let's take it away, and let's get some questions going. How about it?
Okay. Without further ado, I will begin asking questions. I just ask that all panelists, when asking a question, that you direct who you're asking it to. So to begin, I direct my question to Director Michael Rollins. Okay. In light of the protests that have been occurring, do you feel like it would make our city more connected if the police walked or kneeled with our protesters?
So that's a great question. I think that that question also poses a number of challenges. My department has been severely impacted from COVID, and absent of COVID, we probably would do that. But in the light of COVID, that we don't think that was the best way to show support. We focused on keeping the protesters and activists safe and escorted and made sure that they were able to move from one location to the other. And so again, in light of COVID, we just want to make sure everybody's protected. And our job in a protest is to ensure safety and make sure that everyone can express their constitutional right to protest.
Thank you for your response. I will now turn it over to Destiny Rayner to ask her question, and please state who it is directed to.
My question is directed to Reverend Knight. When celebrities spread false information about politics that they don't understand, who does that affect and why does it affect them?
Well, that's a good question. And I think the effect is on everyone in that way, because first off, the people that are involved with the movement, you are now putting them in a bad position because they are speaking the voice. They have been on the ground for so many years or so long fighting this fight that you deteriorate from that fight if you don't understand all of the steps, all of the mechanisms that go into the fight that they have on a daily basis. So for athletes, entertainers, anybody of that nature, you should make sure that once you start talking about facts, that you have your facts correct. There's a different talk if you're talking about your opinion and your feelings. And I always tell people, you're in a position that we are in. Yes, you would like to express your feelings, but make sure that you are expressing them in a way that it is conducive to what the march and the programs are all about, but also it's something that, again, you don't hurt the movement that is going forth. And so I think that it is crucial that those people that have the platform, that have the cameras in front of their face, understand the gravity of what they're talking about, but also understand and have the facts down for what you're going to talk about, because just putting a camera in front of someone's face doesn't make them an expert at that time. And too many times we feel as though athletes and entertainers become experts because of their status, and it shouldn't be that way.
Thank you.
Thank you for your response. I will now turn it over to Nina Collymore to ask her question, and please state who it is directed to.
Thank you, Madison. So my question is directed to Sheriff Floyd Bonner. And I want to know, as your role as sheriff, what is your biggest concern for the men and women you lead when they are interacting with the community on a daily basis, especially in Memphis being predominantly a minority Black community, and there's tension that rivals between there? How do you expect them to act?
I'm sorry. This is Jeff. I'm trying to make sure that Sheriff can be heard. Let me do this as well, guys. Take a quick little break here. If everyone that's on our panel, if you can make sure that you turn your camera on, please. And if you think it's on, turn it off and turn it back on. But everybody needs to make sure your camera is on and live. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties with Sheriff, so if we can go ahead and proceed with questions and, for someone else other than Sheriff for right now.
Okay, that's fine. I can go ahead and ask Director Rawlings, Michael Rawlings, what are your plans moving forward since light has been shed on police brutality in a bigger way? Do you plan on forming a stronger bond with the community of Memphis? And if so, how are you going to implement that?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And I think in absence of the sheriff, we're always concerned about how our officers and deputies interact with the public, and we always want them to be professional and provide the services that they're being paid to do. So when you talk about community outreach, that's one of the main reasons why we brought POW back to Memphis. We wanted to make sure that we had a venue to continue to work with youth. We do an enormous amount of community outreach with our Citizens Police Academy, our Clergy Academy, our Neighborhood Watch, all the community events we attend, assigning officers to community centers, having officers do things like Youth Crime Watch in Shelby County schools, and also with our community outreach program with our cops officers, working at currently food distribution sites, COVID testing sites, and ensuring that we can provide as much outreach as we can. So we'll continue to do those things. We think it's critical. We also think it's critical that we review the facts. So in the Memphis Police Department, we make probably on average 60,000 arrests every single year. Well, less than 2% of those arrests involve an officer using any type of force. So when we talk about complaints of police brutality, we have only a handful of those complaints. Those are investigated by our Inspection Services Bureau. And if the officer is found to be in violation of policy, we hold the officers accountable. So obviously in this new environment we're in, where there's even more scrutiny, we want to make sure that we're open and transparent. We do those investigations fast as we can, and that the officer is held accountable. And we continue to try to explain situations in which an officer may use force and may explain what the public is seeing. I think one of your earlier panelists said that, many people have a platform to speak, but they're not often telling the facts. And I think my obligation is to make sure that the public knows what the facts are, what the nature of the call that officers were involved in, and then what steps the police department is doing to respond to that. And I think that's the right road to take, to make sure that we all know exactly what happened, and then know that the police department will make sure officers are held accountable, and that we know that accurate information is being put out to the public.
Thank you for your response.
You're welcome.
I now turn it over to Manuel Perez Salvador to ask his question.
I'm directing my question to Director Griffin. What is one advantage and disadvantage of the Black Lives Matter movement?
You were cutting in and out. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
My question is, what is one advantage and disadvantage of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I tell you, number one is when we talk about Black Lives Matter, there needs to be a thorough understanding that, number one, all lives matter. Okay, I think with the social injustice that we see on a regular basis, we can kind of walk through the process of understanding how everyone counts. Now, I know in certain situations, what we've seen on television, social media, that doesn't always show that right picture in doing it. But I think our young people need to take an understanding of, it's not what you say, but how you say it. It's about addressing a problem without violence. So many times we tear up our own cities, by protesting and, destroying businesses and what have you. After all the dust settles, why should we tear down our city without coming to the table and being able to talk about things collectively and coming up with a solution? Those one of the things that we try to do within our program within the Memphis Office of Youth Services. We try to provide that guidance and knowledge to our young people to help them to be able to navigate in order for them to become productive individuals in our society. I look at you all as a part of our MAP program. The leadership role that you all are playing today should be an example for all our other youth in this city to follow. But number one, it's always good to have good leadership in place, like our mayor, like our police director, and our sheriff in this city. We have been fortunate and have been blessed, not to have a major turmoil as we see in our other cities. That comes from good leadership. That comes from leadership that communicates. It comes from leadership who put youth as a top priority in their administration. So all these things, it matters to us, especially me being over the youth services division here in the city of Memphis, making sure that we can, create good law-abiding youth, no matter what the issues may be, to be productive individuals in our society. And that's very, very important. You know, it makes me proud just to look at you all taking this role on a national scale, okay, through the Voices of Youth, our PAL program, and the questions that y'all are asking. You know, it's getting knowledge of things that you all have a concern about without being hostile.
Okay, did we lose Madison?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you for your response. And I actually have a question for you, Mr. Jeff Boyd. Since we are at a time where police brutality is very prominent in America, I ask you, what specifically does the National PAL organization do to engage the youth with law enforcement to erase any hatred or fear that they may possess?
Well, you know, National PAL has been the answer for well over 80 years, and PAL has been the answer for over 100 years. In leading the nation in bringing together, you know, we're the leading force behind bringing together kids, cops, and communities. You know, and that's who and what we are, and that's why we've been that answer for so many years. And through our various programs, through our over 300 chapters across the country, as well as even chapters that we have internationally, you know, and being the world's leader of engaging kids, cops, and communities, it's about bringing opportunities together, having conversation and dialogue. That's why, you know, a lot of these things that have taken place and transpired, a lot of them didn't happen and transpire around our PAL programs. Part of that reason is because our young people across the country interact on a daily basis with law enforcement. You know, and the thing that like I had a conversation with one of our PAL youth leaders recently, and just again, as Ike was alluding to, you know, we have to be very real and intentional in this whole thing as well, right? And what I mean by that is this. Young people, I'm quite certain that all of you guys have seen another young person that has done something wrong and some things that you guys might not have done. That doesn't make all young people bad and negative. The same way that, yeah, what took place in Minnesota was very unfortunate and is very gross in nature, right? But it doesn't make all law enforcement bad, you know? So just because of an act doesn't make all young people bad. An act of this kind or several acts doesn't make all law enforcement bad as well. But the one thing, again, from National PAL standpoint, you know, that we have been doing a great job in is providing that opportunity for positive interaction and communication between law enforcement and our community youth. And we're continuing to expound upon that and make opportunities available in cities where we currently are may not even be located.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Destiny to ask the next question.
Thank you, Madison. My next question is for Michael Rellings. The police aren't always seen as protectors. Sometimes the police are even seen as an enemy. Why do you believe that this is the case, and how can you help to change that image?
So another great question, and I go back to some things that Mr. Hood and Mr. Griffin said. Like when I talk to the media in Memphis, I tell them that I cannot out-talk you. And so I will never be able to take over that conversation. I have to depend on the media to report positive stories. And I'll ask you a question. Have you ever seen a story about Powell in Memphis? A news story. Okay. Every time there's a Powell event, or Ike does an event with his youth group, we invite the media. But the media will rarely show up. Now, if I get a youth that commits an armed robbery and shoots somebody or shoots up a store, all of them are going to be there because it's going to be breaking news. So y'all need to know that you're being fed a bunch of misinformation. And so you take a handful of stories. There are 800,000 plus police officers across the nation. And then you have, I can't remember how many different, 18,000 different police agencies. But today we're talking about, the biggest story we're talking about is something that happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're talking about Louisville, Kentucky, Syracuse, New York, and then there's a handful of others. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with the millions and millions of encounters that law enforcement has all across the nation that rarely result in anything. There's no arrest, there's no shooting, there's no anything. But the media has a motto: if it bleeds, it leads. Their lead stories are going to be about shootings and murder and mayhem, because that gets you scared, and you go, and people in Memphis tell me, Director, there's a murder every day. I said, no, it's not, and nor has it ever been. Our highest number of homicides was 228 in 2016. There's 365 days in a calendar year. So what I need youth to be, what I need adults to be, is be critical thinkers and think about the true issues we have. And I give you an example, and I'll shut up. And I don't have our murder statistics in front of me, but I can tell you that we've already had about 210 homicides in Memphis this year. We're going to break the 228 record. Of those 210, 86 to 88% are African Americans that have been victims of homicide. 24 kids have been killed. There has not been one single protest on any of those homicides. And some of them are heinous. People have been gunned down in the street. And the problem I have is that granted, I am responsible for police behavior and police conduct. So I understand the scrutiny and criticism and the role we play. I'm open to that level of scrutiny. But at the same time, I cannot ignore that bodies are stacking up all over Memphis. And that when I talk to kids and I go to community events, and the people that reach out to me rarely are complaining about a police officer. They're saying, Director, you need to do something about this crime. I'm scared to go outside. I'm scared to send my kids to the store. You know, kids are getting shot while they're in the home from young men shooting into their homes. Those are the things that I get confronted with, and I think that there needs to be balance in this conversation. Yes, we have problems with law enforcement, But most of the problems that are being brought to my attention happen in another jurisdiction that I have no control over. I have control over Memphis police officers. Our fatal officer-involved shootings are investigated by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. I don't do them. We do internal investigations, but again, I think the goal is to focus on the many problems we have, come together with informed youth like yourself, or we can talk about these issues calmly, like Mr. Hood and Mr. Griffin talked about, and then you can really map out solutions. My fear today is that we're hearing a bunch of rhetoric and falsehoods at the highest office in the United States, and it's permeating throughout everything we do to where we don't know, is coronavirus real or not? And it depends on who you talk to. Some people say it's not real, but 200,000 Americans have died. We have to acknowledge that we have a crime problem, and then we have to acknowledge that we have a problem with truancy. We have a problem with domestic violence. We have a problem with child abuse. We have a problem with obesity. We have a problem with healthcare. We have all these problems that contribute to a crime problem and a relationship problem, and that we need to really work hard to solve. But we're going to depend on the youth to be informed, to be critical thinkers, and to be able to do what Mr. Griffin said: come to the table, lay out these issues, make sure we understand the issues, and then map out a solution. Because Director Rollins is down to 7 months and he'll retire and have to go figure out what he's going to do in his second life. But you will be coming up and you'll be leading other youth to try to do the right thing. And then when they have problems and concerns, to voice those in the proper platform to where we can really map out solutions. And my fear today is there's a bunch of screaming and hollering, but we're really not mapping out solutions. And that's what I think we need to make this transition to. And we're going to rely on you youth to really make that happen.
Thank you, Director Rollins. Jeff Hood, you may proceed to ask your question.
I think you're on mute, Mr. Hood.
I am. Thank you. I'm busy reading my question, making sure. Thank you, sir. I hated to come back to you. Normally, I don't like having two questions to the person in a row, but I wanted to get your sense on this. Whether it's in your community or holistically, nationally speaking, what systems might you think can be put into place that will seek to aid in reducing and/or eliminating senseless shootings and abuse?
So when you talk about senseless shootings and abuse, I'm gonna have you clarify, because, are we talking about police involved shootings or?
I'm thinking that's probably what they're saying.
Okay, so I'm gonna touch both of them, because America has a violence problem, because America has a gun problem. There are millions and millions of guns available to American citizens by their constitutional right. But there is a proliferation of guns that are available to individuals that are not law-abiding, nor are legally able to possess guns. So America needs to address this violence problem. And this problem of violence often happens in communities of color, which lead more interactions with law enforcement and communities of color. So when you talk about officer-involved shootings, there's so many good discussions that are going on a national level. One, the George Floyd bill that has been passed by Congress, but may not make it out of Senate, is a good start. So there are some things on a national legislation level that need to occur to make sure that there are standards and training of all of those 800,000 police officers in 18,000 police agencies. So you need standardized training requirements for that. We all agree, or most of our law enforcement officials agree, that there needs to be a national database on officers that have been fired or terminated from a law enforcement agency, so that these individuals are not doing what we call department jump. the jumping from one department to another. But these officers do get a thorough background check, and I can't imagine that an agency does not know that a police officer has been in trouble in another agency. You know, they need to really pay attention to how they hire these individuals. On the state level, the governor of the state of Tennessee asked roughly 90 days ago that all Tennessee law enforcement review all of their policies, especially when it comes to de-escalation, when it comes to how we deal with protests. He extended the amount of time that is required for police officers to be in an academy, the amount of training that they have, and he also added additional training to our in-service. So Sheriff Bonner just reported on that last week, that we finished the first phase and there'll be more reforms from the state. But each agency can do, and I know Mr. Griffin has participated in a number of these conversations where we as representatives of government, we're going to do everything we can do to hear you, youth, and our other citizens, to include protesters and activists, on what you think are the things we need to work on. So we have to listen to you, and then we have to take action and implement the things that we can implement on our level to make things better. So when you talk about federal legislation, that has to happen. State legislation and requirements need to change. On the local level, we need to be open and receptive and make sure we're doing everything we can do. Like our mayor, the citizen of the city of Memphis, stood up a new website, reimaginememphistn.gov. Reimaginememphistn.gov. So you can go to that website where we're talking about reimagining policing in Memphis, and you can submit a comment. You can make a suggestion. You could commend a police officer. You could file a complaint, but then you can also see what we've done, where we're in compliance with 8 Can't Wait. We're using 21st century policing that was proposed by President Barack Obama and the task force he assembled when he was in office. We give you resources where you can see actions taken and things we do. You can see the mayor's priorities, and you can join the Memphis Police Department. And so you can be the change that you want to see. So those just are things on federal, state, and the local level that we can do to make a change and reduce the amount of shootings and negative encounters that law enforcement has with citizens.
Okay. Hey, Madison, before you get started, I just want to make another announcement. Those that are tuning in, if you have questions that you would like for us to consider to ask our panel, if you can write those and place those in the Q&A section, that would be great and much appreciated. Okay, thank you, Madison.
Thank you. My next question is directed to Mr. Reverend Knight. I know that you played high school ball, college ball, and you were a part of several different NBA teams. So my question to you is, growing up as a young athlete, did you ever feel like your voice was being oppressed, like you couldn't speak on certain matters, or you would have opportunities taken away from you, or?
That's a great question, because the biggest, and sorry y'all, I have tried to get this video thing to go, and for whatever reason, I've clicked on and off with this camera 30 times, and it's just I'm not cute enough to be on with everyone else. So but I would say that for so long as an athlete, I think we had this mantle, we had this platform, but we didn't understand how to use it, because when someone did speak out in some fashion, then eventually it was always, and for basketball guys, it was shut up and dribble. We came to you guys for entertainment. We wanted to leave the real world when we were able to sit down and watch a sporting event. And I think what it has gotten to for us as athletes and entertainers is that you may be able to come to an event, enjoy the skills that those people are able to present to get your mind off of what's going on at home. But those people that are out there playing and being those entertainment, they can never leave what is their normal day-to-day life. So just going to a gym to play a game, just going to a field to play football, baseball, or any of those things yes, we play that game, but the skin color that we have is still what it is. So I think it just became a point where a lot of athletes started to say, I am no longer just concerned with how this is going to affect me. I feel as though I have a duty to try to speak up for the voices. What we like to say is those people who don't have microphones, those people who aren't going to be interviewed, but we are. And so with this platform, again, it just goes, but you may have this opportunity, but there is a huge, uh, there's a requirement that you have to have of the sense to speak the correct way, the sense to not incite any more violence, the sense to try to just echo the sentiments of those from our communities. And when you echo those sentiments, you also have I said earlier, you have your opinions, and you just have to be strong enough within yourself to say that this is what I believe in, and whatever comes out of it, I'll have to deal with. But to sit and be quiet no longer can be something that we advocate any longer. Is that the way that we stop your entertainment? You want to get away from real life? Well, we're going to continue to bring real life because real life is brought to us on a daily basis.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. I'll turn it over to Ms. Nina.
Thank you, Madison. And I just want to say I really appreciate Mr. Director Rawlings, and I'm so sorry. I'm having a brain fart. Mr. Brevin, for going in depth more about the topics that you just mentioned, because as Memphians and people who live in Memphis or any other impoverished, high impoverished cities, I think poverty is one of the biggest factors and reasonings for how Memphis is the way it is and what influences our crime. And this is an ongoing argument, but I want to direct this question to Director Ike Griffith. Do you think that poverty has a huge holding on why there is youth crime, why people have to kind of work harder into getting into places and things of that nature, and just making it kind of out of Memphis, as a lot of youth like to say, we want to make it out of Memphis because we feel like there aren't opportunities. How do you feel about the poverty, poverty issues and how they affect the youth and overall the city of Memphis?
That's a great question. You know, poverty, it affects anyone. It doesn't have to be a youth, it can be an adult. But I think one of the things that we need to put in the forefront is that take advantage of opportunities that come your way. Now, that is a true statement here in our city. But no, I'm gonna just kind of use my division for an instance. You know, we provide opportunities over the summer for summer employment, okay? And, you know, I'm not gonna say our summer program will solve that ill of poverty, but you know, some of our children don't even take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to them. And I think until we understand how to take advantage of opportunities that come our way. Now, I'm not gonna tell you that the money that you're gonna make big money, $25, $30 an hour. No, it's not that. But it's an opportunity for you to start the process, you know, for getting out of the situation that you may be in. And many of our young people don't take advantage of those opportunities. Another important fact to keep in mind is that peer pressure is very, very strong, okay? Very strong. You may have a child that may not want to work in my summer program, but will be swayed to sell drugs in his or her community, okay? Because it's fast money, it's more money. So we need to also keep in mind to make good choices. You know, one thing about life, it tests you first, and then it teaches the lesson, okay? And if you're not well prepared prior to, you know, going out here dealing in the real world, you're destined to failure. I mean, you just got to call it what it is. And it's so very important, number one, for individuals to create a blueprint for success. Now, grant you, we're in a whirlwind right now. We're learning new norms. You know, in our school system, everything now is virtual. Okay, we have a pandemic going on. You have crime in our city, and it's a lot to take in. And mental health is a major, major important factor that we must also keep at the forefront. If you're not strong enough, you can get caught up. And keep in mind, young people, your brain is not fully developed until you're between 25 and 30 years old. So there's a lot that you are taking in all at once. And if you don't know how to prioritize, you know, some of these things can get you caught up. You know, many times I'm gonna say this and I end. When I see a young person on the street corner holding up a sign saying, "I will work for food," you know, I automatically go back in my head and say, where did this person take the wrong turn to be in a situation like this? Okay? As a young adult, did they finish school? Did they try to find a job? Did they take advantage of opportunities that may have presented themselves so they wouldn't have to hold up a sign? So there's many factors that embraces poverty, but we don't have to necessarily be in that arena to always be in that arena, if I can say that in so many words. It's very important to start prioritizing, take advantage of opportunities, but most of all, watch the company that you keep. And I say that because peer pressure is very, very strong, not only in our city, but worldwide, okay? And you have to be strong enough to stay up on your feet to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manuel, you may now ask your question.
All right, my question is for Mr. Floyd Bonner. As County Sheriff, what changes have you seen over the course of these last 6 months that you think will affect generations?
If Sheriff is not here, I'll take a.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, wow. We're witnessing stuff, folks, that nobody alive today has ever witnessed. And we have to put that into context. So in my 30 years, and Sheriff Bonner probably has 35 years of service, we have never witnessed a global pandemic, number one. That was enough to deal with by itself. And then we saw what happened with the horrific murder of Mr. George Floyd, that law enforcement all over the nation and world, we have stood with the activists and protesters in denouncing what that was. That was a murder. Then when we go into all the protests that followed, and now this movement to reform police and some discussion to defund police in the middle of a global pandemic is scary, because this is a time when we need all hands on deck. My officers and Sheriff Bonner's deputies are working food distribution sites. We're protecting critical infrastructure and these essential businesses. We are protecting testing sites and making sure that everything is orderly. My officers are posted on the interstate because this year we've had 48 people shot at on the interstate. We're having officers and deputies shot at, and we have an epidemic of violent crime, not just homicides, but shootings that we're dealing with. And so this is a time unlike we've ever seen. We graduated our first class of police service technicians that graduated from Shelby County Schools last June virtually. Then they graduated from the police academy as police service technicians to go into a post-COVID world. This is unbelievable that 90,000+ kids in Shelby County schools are at home. We don't know if they're being abused, if they're being neglected, if they're actually logging on and doing work, because all of this is new. So, and we are, scared because we got a presidential election, a potential for the entire economy to collapse and have a downfall bigger than the Great Depression in the midst of a global pandemic where 200,000 Americans have lost their lives and millions have COVID. So this is unprecedented time that we're all trying to figure it out and figure out how to get to the other safer side. So again, I think that we've never seen this, and we will be rewriting the history books on how we manage this, how the election comes out, how we get through this era of police reform. And again, these Mr. Griffin, he's my senior. I'm 54. So we may not be here around in the next, 50 years to see what the change is, but y'all will be here. Y'all will be able to say you lived through COVID. You remember when it started in 2020, and you'll be able to talk about what it's like in this next 50 years. So again, y'all have no idea how much pressure is on you, because anybody over 50, they're not going to be here. You may have a handful that lives past 100, but there will be a handful of people here saying, I remember. You folks will be here to tell those stories and pass it on to generations. So you're going to have to make sure you really understand and know what's going on, and then you're going to have to map out solutions, because I will be in a wheelchair somewhere, hopefully being pushed around to some nice place and not tucked away in a nursing home where nobody knows me.
Thank you for your response, Director Rollins. I will now turn it over to Mr. Jeff Hood to ask his question.
Yes, thank you, Madison. And actually, my question is going to be directed to our youth panelists. So I'm going to start first with Nina. Nina, my question is, as a youth in the community, what most concerns you or bothers you in this day and age?
To be honest, as a youth in my community, I'm most worried about the poverty, my generation, and the education that we are receiving on how our community is funded, because I am socially aware that participating in things like voting, doing the census, those are things, very large things that we can do that helps bring money into our community. And when we have money, we are able to distribute that money into things that we need, like schools, resources, community centers. And I'm so afraid for my peers that they're not aware of the opportunities, like Director Griffith said, that are around them. Because I have to tell my friends sometimes, you can do this, or this opportunity is out there. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows that there are opportunities for them, even if the odds seem against them. I'm most concerned about the mindset of my community and my generation's community.
Very good, thank you. Next question, same question to Destiny.
I also agree with Nina about the poverty and stuff, but I believe that the most important to me is education, just because I feel as though schools aren't giving us what we need. Because when we leave school, we're put out into the real world. So it's not all about A's and B's and C's and D's, because an A, B student might end up being on the streets. I want to be taught how to pay my bills. I want to be taught how to drive. We used to have driving lessons back then, driver's ed. We used to have homemade. Some of us don't even know how to cook. some of us don't even know how to provide for ourselves. And like Nina said, we have organizations, but some schools don't even put those organizations out. The schools are not giving us what we need as the youth. School is where it's at. We start in elementary. You get taught different things in elementary, 1, 2, 3s, ABCs. Some of our children are not being taught their ABCs and 1, 2, 3, so they go into the first, the second, the third, and fourth, and the fifth, not even knowing how to read. So when they go to middle school, it's like, now what do we do? So that's why I feel like we always end up on the street, because the school is not giving us what we need. So I feel like the school system needs to buck up a little bit. They need to buck up a lot, not even just a little bit. They have to give us more.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Destiny. And Manuel, same question. Need to hear from you as well.
In my community, what I most look forward to is change. My people in my community, from day to day, we see pain, we see suffering, we see poverty. Not every night, but most nights we hear gunshots. And growing up in a community like that, it's not easy. It's not easy. I have younger siblings that go day to day staying only in the house just because of what we might have heard last night, what might be going on outdoors. My number one concern is our safety. Look, the people that live around me, I don't know, I'm sorry.
That's okay, take your time, you're okay.
In my community, we need safety. Safety is what we need.
Okay.
I've never seen a police drive down my street. I've never seen that. I've never seen people helping each other out. My family in particular, we own a garden that we used to have for our community, but our community never stepped up. We asked for speed bumps down our street, and the firefighters across the corner told us that we couldn't have them. In my community, it's not the same as every other community. Our community is not where it's supposed to be, and that's my concern for not only my community, but this entire state, this entire city. This world needs more service, but the service that we're getting treated is not the service that we need. Our people are getting shot down. Our people are getting killed just for the skin, just for our skin. I might not look black to y'all, but I promise you, this is how I feel about my people. My people are the blacks. My people are the Hispanics, because I am both. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And Madison, I know you're the moderator, but I want to hear from you in regards to this and ask you that same question. As a youth in the community, what most concerns you or bothers you as well?
Okay, so I would say what most concerns me is that, for one, we are living in an unprecedented time. You know, we've never faced a pandemic. And now we're living at a time where we are seeing law enforcement killing African Americans on camera and going without conviction. And that's a scary thought. It's very scary realizing that. And I just feel like the youth of today, eventually at the end of this decade, some of us will be leaders. And in our education system, like Destiny and Nina said, we are not being taught like essential things. You know, we're not being taught on how to survive out in America. We're not being given a lot of opportunities, especially in our public schools. And then we have programs like MAP that try to help the youth, but a lot of youth are feeling like unmotivation. They're being peer pressured into joining gangs and doing drugs, and a lot of them are not aware, like Nina said. A lot of them don't know about these opportunities. A lot of them are just being influenced by social media. They're listening to what social media has to say and not trying to get facts, not trying to educate themselves on these particular topics. So I feel like the youth being educated or not being educated in our community is a big problem, because that leads to other issues as they get older. Of course, if you're not like educated on what to do after high school, or what college you want to go to, or just what's going on in America, period, then once you become an adult, you're going to turn to other things to depend on. Like they might join gangs, or they might sell drugs, just because they don't know how to survive after high school. And given that we're learning school virtually now, a lot of students are losing their motivation to want to educate themselves. So.
Okay.
Mr. Hood,
Well,
can I
thank
make a couple of comments?
I'm sorry, is that you, Director?
Yeah, Director Rollins.
Yes, please.
So,
You come on camera.
so here's a couple of observations. I think that what you all shared is enlightening. So, Ms. Madison, since you were the last one, I'll just go back to make sure you review every incident, because rarely is anyone more scrutinized than an officer-involved shooting or an officer-involved fatality. It is always investigated. And if you think about the 4 officers in Minnesota, they've all been arrested and charged. The officers in Atlanta have been arrested and charged. So if you peel back the onion on each one of those, you got to wait, because that process takes a long time. And then I would say, if you say every year in Memphis, we have about 5,000 aggravated assaults. Most of those are shootings. We average somewhere around 150 to 180 murders every year. Most people have no idea where the status of those murder investigations. They don't track those cases through court unless it's a family member or a friend. What you may hear about is some very high profile incidents, and you may find out the other, but the court process is, our criminal justice process is not perfect, but it's still a good system. And so a lot of it you just are not aware of. Now I want you to think about the Shelby County schools, nor the Memphis City schools, or any of the private schools do not teach dope dealing 101. They don't teach you how to carjack. They don't teach you how to break into a house. They don't teach you how to break into a school. They don't teach you any of that. So what we have to do is think about that. I always go back and talk about history. Emancipation, when emancipation came about to a bunch of people that by law could not be educated, could not be taught how to read and write, by law could not own property, by law could not do a number of things, especially in the South. Now you had a handful in the North, but emancipation was less than 200 years ago. You're only talking about 156 something years, something like that. That's not a long time ago. But what those individuals wanted is for their children to know how to read, their children to go to school. And so now our kids can go to school. You can go learn to read and write, and y'all have a smartphone. Y'all have more information in your pocket. And when I talk to kids, I say, you can't be dumb and own a smartphone, because you have all the information. And we're going to have to motivate other youth like you already are to learn. And you go to school to learn how to read and write and do math. You're going to pick up life skills, but that's not the school's primary responsibility. And you can seek out people like Mr. Griffin, like Mr. Hood, like the Reverend to talk to and attach to those people. You're going to learn from them those life skills. Your grandmother, your aunt, your uncle, people at church will teach you those things. And I just want to piggyback on, I think Ms. Nita talked about poverty. Let's remember that the surest way out of poverty has always been education. Always. W.D. Du Bois understood that when he talked about the talented 10th, the college educated. George Washington Carver understood that everybody's not going to go to college, that I want to teach you how to farm. I want to teach you to be a air conditioned person, a plumber. I want to teach you how to lay bricks, because I just want you working and being productive. So we're going to have to stay focused on the one sure way out of poverty has always been education. And the governor of the state of Tennessee put where you can go to college for 2 years for free, and it's an underserved program. We don't have enough youth taking advantage of the program. My young man that talked about safety, bravo. That is a major problem. And I love, please get somebody to send me what's your street. I will make sure that some of our officers come on your street, because safety is all of our concerns. People talk to me about safety. They don't bring up a lot of the other things that may be popular in media. They talk about the gunshots. They talk about the violence. They talk about the fear where you can't concentrate because of that. And then I think Miss Destiny talked about education, and you talked about poverty also. And so let's take advantage of the education opportunities you have. Let's make sure you maximize those and that you utilize that smartphone and those computers. And y'all don't understand that me and Mr. Griffin and Mr. Hood and the Rev, we didn't have it was a house phone you had, and you dialed the numbers. And your mama didn't let you get on it. You better not be talking to a girl. If you had a girl, she better not be talking to a boy. We didn't have computers. The best we had was some encyclopedias that came from the grocery store, because they used to give little coupons. I laughing, but they know I'm telling the truth. And so we just have to go back and remember those. We had hand-me-down books that were falling apart, that had been already written in, but we still had to read them to gain knowledge. And my mother used to tell me that they had little chalkboards that they learned on. And they were much more educated than some of the youth I see today. So y'all are going to have to help us motivate you to learn and thrive despite the multitude of challenges y'all have. And y'all have a multitude of challenges, but we can make it to the other side. We just have to be, we just have to be tenacious, and you got to be real about it and tough about it. And don't let those obstacles keep you from learning, because in every school, no matter what school it is, there's a valedictorian and there's a salutatorian coming out the most impoverished neighborhoods. And they say, how did these kids make it? They had, God on their side. They had family support. They had other kids helping them. So just remember, y'all are critical to the success of this city and this nation. And don't ever sell yourself short. You can pull these other youth to the other side.
Thank you. I would just like to ask Mr. Reverend Knight if he has any commentary or questions to add.
Well, no questions. But first, I'd like to say I commend the four of you for the comments that you made, because there's a lot of times we get to talking, but we don't get to listening. And too many times we silence our young people because we say you don't have the experience, you don't know, you haven't lived enough. And for the four of you to be able to express yourselves the way that you have is important, because we need more kids to be able to express themselves. And I say it, express yourself, and not in anger, because there are times when your anger then goes further than your expression. The message gets lost. So continue to speak the way that you guys are. And just a couple of things I just want to hit on. Education. I grew up, just a little background. I grew up like a lot of you guys, like a lot of you have grown up. I grew up in a city in East Orange, New Jersey. 99.9% black was my entire city. And there were impoverished areas, but there was a working class area also within my neighborhood. And the one thing that I was blessed to have was my mom and dad both went to college. My mom and dad were still at home. So I had two stable people to try to push me along. I understand that every household doesn't have that. But what you do have is you have an internal fortitude that you have to find as a young person of color. You have to find it sooner in your life than anyone else. And that should it be that way? No, but it is a reality of where we are. And as everyone continues to say, the way that you get out is through education, by continuing to go to school. I know your schools may not be up to par. They may not be at the status or level that you feel as though that they should be, but that should not be an excuse as to why you do not continue to excel with your education. If I have to look further, if I have to go outside of the classroom, continue to try to become sponges with your mind, with this education piece. And when you talk to your friends, explain to them some of the programs that Dr. Griffin talked about that they have out there in the summer for us to do. Am I going to be making boatloads of money? No. And at the end of the day, everybody is not going to be a millionaire. Everybody is not going to be rich. There are people that have great lives They work every day, but their life is good. It's fulfillment in their life because they're doing the right thing. And so you guys have to understand that I might not be able to become I might not be able to become an NBA player. I might not be able to become the richest person in the world, but you still can be the richest person within yourself. And if you can just continue to understand, believe within yourself that I am going to get somewhere, despite what it looks like out my front door, I'm still going to ascend somewhere, and understand that education is the tool to get you there, then you'll continue to keep putting that foot forward. But I'm going to let you know, there's going to be people that's going to try to knock you down. There's going to be instances that get hard. You cannot wilt under that pressure. You have to show that strength and that fortitude to continue to move forward. The thing with the police, and this is big for me. We've seen the videos of what we've seen. We understand the feeling that we get when I'm driving. The feeling that we get, we see those lights on. But something that the director said that was big was that it's not everyone. It's not every cop that is that way. And I am as upset, and I hope that you guys are, I am as upset as the crime that we do to ourselves is the crime that happens from someone else, because it infuriates me that I can watch someone that looks exactly like me just walk up, and whether it's murder, whether it is rob, whether it's steal, from the person that's living down the street from you that's struggling just like you. So do I have the problem with the police brutality? Yes, because they are put in a position to protect and serve. Not going to say that it's all of them. 1, 2, 3 is too many for me with what has happened. But the other thing that I get upset with is when I see us doing to ourselves, which happens so much more than them doing to us. And so we have to get to the point where we have to love ourselves enough that we can continue to move forward. And that goes back to something because I'm only 45. So hopefully I won't have to be pushed in that wheelchair when it's not bad, but hopefully I've just got my cane and I'm walking to say we were able to live through a bad time, which is what we're going through. But understand that we have to love ourselves better. You as youngsters have to love the next one next to you that looks like you. We have allowed our own inner fight within our own community to take hold of us so much that we're now just trying to hold on to what's happening to what the police do to us. No, we got to get tighter within ourselves. So when that one thing does happen, then we come together, community, and say, well, we're not going to allow these people down the street to keep selling drugs. I'm not going to allow you to continue to recruit these kids to become gang members, then take them out of school. Well, listen, there's so many things that we need to fight on the front of ourselves, that this police thing, I'm hoping that somehow, some way, some shape or form, it can get situated right. But I am also hoping and praying that sometime we can look and see each other as we walk down the street and say hello, because that's another brother, that's another sister. And I'm just saying hi because that's what it is. And so I am so happy that, number one, that Jeff asked me to be here, but just to listen and hear the four of you gives me a lot more optimism that things can be different for your generation than it was for our generation.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Thank you for that. We will now turn it back to youth question and going back to Miss Destiny.
Okay. So my next question is about human trafficking, and I feel as though a lot of people really don't hit this question a lot or hit this topic a lot, and I feel like it's very important for our boys and our girls and people our age. So young boys and girls are all as young as 5 are always getting taken from their family and friends every day due to human trafficking. The profits made from human trafficking are around $150 billion. Most of that money comes from sexual exploitation. There's a different horror story every day. What is Memphis doing to try and make sure that this can never happen to our youth? And this can be pointed to anybody who wants to hit this topic. I just really want to hear somebody talk about it because I don't hear a lot of people talk about it that much.
Well, I'll comment on it. So first of all, we work very closely with the FBI, the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, Department of Children's Services, and the Memphis Police Department to combat human trafficking. The new challenge with human trafficking is twofold, and I'll give you a great example. On any given year, there are somewhere around 30,000 kids that are supposed to be registered to the school system that we can't find. They're not registered. We don't have good phone numbers. We don't have good addresses because so many kids are transient and they're moving from neighborhood to neighborhood, house to house, apartment to apartment, staying with family members, etc. The other problem is the internet and social media, where a child or an adult can be exploited on social media, put out for the highest bidder, be a victim of sexual predators, etc., in the confines and in that space of social media and the internet. Again, that is something that we didn't face coming up. So these are two new challenges. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. You'll never hear a lot about it because we don't report child victimization like we would an adult. We're never going to show the victim, especially if they're a child. We don't show victims if they're adults. We will show the victimizer if there's an arrest. So you're not going to hear a lot about it, but there's a lot of work that goes on with TBI. And there are two things specifically I want you to be aware of. You may see almost every single day, if you watch the news, any news station, you'll see a city watch alert being issued for a child or a vulnerable adult. Most of the time, it's a vulnerable adult that may be suffering from dementia or may have been lost or that we can't find them. But runaway children, sometimes it could be a throwaway child where the parent has said, "Get out, I don't care where you go." The parent is giving that child and allowed a adult boyfriend to take that child somewhere, just not keeping up with that child. But the city watch is one way where we say, look, this is a missing child. We need to locate that child. Contact the police department. And then the Amber Alerts that we put when a child is in danger and there's a suspect information. So it's incumbent upon all of us to report these incidents so we can initiate an investigation and try to rescue that child from that and then get the child the services they need to recover from that very horrific experience. If they're being, sexually trafficked, if they're a victim of some type of child exploitation, child pornography, etc. But I agree with you. We need to talk more about it so that we take action. But just know that law enforcement and other professionals are working behind the scenes to do all we can to combat, child sexual trafficking or to combat child sexual predators.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nina, you may proceed to ask your question.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Director Michael Rawlings and Mr. Knight and Director Griffith, especially for being a part of this program. And I just wanted to say, on the topic of education, for the youth listening and parents, education doesn't just stop at school. Education is in everything. It's in programs like MAP, where we have our 5 pillars are community service, leadership, education, entrepreneurship, and perseverance. And I just want to extend my hand out to specifically Director Rawlings and invite you to come to my school and other schools and educate us more so we can have that community building with police officers, because what you told me today, I did not know. And it's not just research, it's also having that direct communication. And I just wanted to extend my hand out to you, and we can talk more after the panel. But my question is for Reverend Knight. As a person with high status, how do you encourage others to be more socially aware and take part of community building practices like voting or doing the census in order to help our community be better?
Well, I think that through social media, I time to time will write different messages of things that are on my heart. I'm not big on just talking about everything. So when I do say something, it has more effect in what I do. And so I try to, the big thing for me is that at the end of the day, I'm around a lot of white people on a regular basis in the job that I do. And for so long, I tried to make sure that everyone was comfortable, because the elephant in the room is we know things are going on, but how do we talk about it? And so I made them comfortable with those talks. Whereas today, where we are today, there is no more level of comfort for them in talks that I have about things that are affecting my community. And so it's incumbent upon me to, as I talked about earlier, be able to talk about these things in an intelligent way, to not be angry so much with the statements, because you can watch and see things that are going on, and your anger, as I told you earlier, your anger can take you places. You can say things that then later on you want to try to retract. And so for me, it is I kind of let things sink in, and then I try to figure out what's the best way for me to comment on this, but to have it also be meaningful with what I say. And so that's how I use my status, whatever that may be, to try to educate those that don't understand. But then what I start to find is from the majority is that they just didn't know. Like at the end of the day, a lot of people just didn't know. And things that are going on now, the talks that we're having, I get a lot of people saying, well, I apologize, I'm sorry that this, and I'm like, I don't really need for you to say sorry. I need just for you to have empathy for what's going on, be willing to listen, and then from there, we can try to figure out how we make it better. But it is just about opening people's mind, making sure that they see and hear more than just what's on the news. And I say that because we can turn on the news and as Mr. Rollins said, only thing that we want to show is negativity. And so how do you see Black people on the news? Well, we're seen as criminals. We're seen as anything that is negative is attached to us. And so for me, it is about trying to change that stigma. Is to try to say that, guess what? We got bad Black people. We got good Black people. You got bad white people. You got good white people. You got bad Hispanics. Like it's that there is no one way for any culture. And I think for so long, we've been put in this box that we are this way. You guys are entertainers and athletes, and that's what y'all are. And so I feel like my role is to show that, yes, I was an athlete. I did make people feel good, but I also went to Stanford University, graduated from Stanford University. And so this is not just, is he just an athlete? Oh, he's an educated athlete. I'm never going to take away my athlete status because I worked hard to become an athlete. I worked my tail off to be good at my craft, but I also worked my tail off to be a great student. And so the combination of the two allowed me to open doors that otherwise would have been closed. And that's why I always tell kids, no matter when you think that is down, continue to get those good grades, because I promise you, they will open a door that you thought was not there before. And so I just try to be as positive as I can. And I would love to, I can say I'm here in Memphis now full time. I don't go back and forth. My family is now living here. So I would love to stop by any school at any time, come to any after school program, come over to the PAL, see what you guys are doing, whatever it takes for me to show our kids that you can be. Guess what? I listen to hip hop music with the best of them. I'm talking about I bang my car, the best of them. And if you were to look over at me and say, man, that nigga didn't go to Stanford because of what he banging that hip. Oh, listen, I wear the whole thing, but I still understand there's nothing. I love being Black. I will never change with that. I love my color. I love my people, but we are not one way. And that is what we have to change. We don't just listen to one set of music. We don't dress one way. That's not who we are. And if we can continue to get that message out, and then we can show ourselves that, hey, we can do more, then hopefully there can be some change. I don't know how much, but I always just hope and pray that tomorrow can be better than yesterday. And if that happens, then eventually the next year will be better than the last year. And we say that the next 10 years will be better than those last. And then we keep going from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Thank you for showing us that new perspective. I will turn it over to Mr. Manuel to ask his next question.
My next question is directed towards Director Griffith and Mr. Reverend Knight. As most people might know or might not know, the value of the United States dollar is dropping. Since it's dropping, what do you think is the next move? What is going to happen next after the dollar has zero value?
You know, I tell you, that's a great question. I wish I was an expert in that arena to really be able to ask. But I tell you, one of the things that, and we're talking about finance now, is the fact that our young people need to be more aware of financial literacy. Okay, you know, many of our young people, as old people used to say, senior used to say, money just burns your hand. You know, because we don't believe in saving, we don't know how to save. We'll go out and buy up everything we possibly can without putting up for a rainy day. You know, to be able to just tell you about the value of the dollar, I'm not an expert in that arena, but just knowing financial literacy on any facet is very, very important. And I think through our programs that we do have, that is one of our priorities, to teach financial literacy, to let young people know how to save, how to invest, you know, how to put up for a rainy day, as you may always hear. But, you know, before I get into all that, I just want to commend Mr. Knight and Director Rollins and even Mr. Hood on all the valuable information that they have passed on to you young people. And I value each and every one of you all because you all are embracing this. You know, the young people we need to be talking to is not on this panel, okay? They're not on the panel. But if you all can be those advocates for us, you know, because we as adults have been where you have to go. But you all have a lot of wisdom, you know, you have a lot of leadership skills in you that you can pass on to your peers. The way you may say things may be entirely different from the way I put it, but you'll be able to reach the level of your peers to be able to tell them the right directions to go. You know, if I can just say this, and I'll turn it over to Devin because he may have the answers to the question that you just asked, but we need to start respecting ourselves. And young ladies, you know, I hear so many times young men calling you all man, you got me messed up. You know, have enough respect that, you know, you walk away from conversations like that. Don't even get in no relationships like that. You know, we first got to respect each other, but for us not to respect one another, and we talk about the Black Lives Matter, and Mr. Knight hit on this wholeheartedly. Look at what we're doing to ourselves. And I'm not going to stay on that subject long because they really explain it to the highest. But you need to understand how important it is to get our own house in order, okay? And that's so valuable to us. So I'm going to turn it over to Devin because that's one that went kind of over my head, but it was a great question. But I just can't, you know, not being in that arena on a daily basis, can't really answer that. So Devin, Reverend, just take it away. You answer.
You're gonna put this one on me, huh? Well, the only thing I can say is I follow in your footsteps of having financial literacy. The other thing I can say to you that is, if the dollar bottoms out, we are all in the same problem area. So there will be, the answer to that is one in which it's going to be an effect. There's going to be a whole effect if that goes down. And I guess I would piggyback on the financial literacy part of just understanding money, like understanding how much money comes in. There's another thing that we have to understand. There's a thing called taxes that people tend to just put to the side when they hear these contracts or they hear how much money someone's making. They forget that there's a large part of that money that you make and do goes back to the government. And if you can understand how to take care of your money, whether that be putting away, savings, rainy day fund, and not just spending. Something I try to continue to talk to my own children about is because you never know what tomorrow holds. And I think you have to say, I want to amass some type of wealth. I want to live while I'm still earning. But I understand that you cannot just spend. And I think that is a problem, but it is also the backbone of how capitalism works. The way that our country was built on spending. You just have to understand what's your level that you can spend at, because not everybody lives the same. There are certain people that can spend and it doesn't matter. There's other people that you spend and now you have to figure out how to make up the next month. So just continue for yourselves in your own mind to understand the value of money, not the value of the dollar as it is in relation to the rest of the world, but just money in and of itself.
Thank you again.
All right.
Thank you, Director Griffith and Mr. Knight. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Jeff Hood.
All right, guys. First, I want to thank everyone for participating in another awesome From the Voices of Youth Town Hall series presented by Microsoft and supported by Extended Stay America and Sports Engine. I know it's, again, we're all coming virtual now, so we can't all, for the most part, do this, but I want to give a virtual round of applause as well to our youth participants and all as well for their participation and their willingness to be involved and engaged. I do just have a few short things before we wind up closing this session out. Again, want to thank Memphis Shelby Powell for participating, and Craig Littles and his staff for all that they have done in supporting and making this happen as well. Again, I want to thank our young people, Madison and Manuel, Destiny, and Nina. You guys have been rock stars, and thank you guys so much for your willingness and your preparation and your perseverance with this as well. Again, want to thank Microsoft and Extended Stay and Spring Sports Engine for their support. Also want to definitely thank our panelists. And there's a lot of things that we can all be doing right now, but I want to thank you guys for making available 90 minutes to give back to listening and hearing. And I say that in very seriousness of hearing and listening to our young people, because it is fashionable as us for adults to, kind of dismiss the voice of our young people. And that's why National PAL wanted to take the lead in doing this across 18 cities and states and countries and all, to be able to allow people to hear from our young people. I also want to make everyone known that in the Q&A section, we are going to be placing the survey. For those, before you leave out, if you have before you click off, if you can click onto the Q&A, take the survey. It's only just a few short questions for participation. We want to make this better and better and better as we go, and we can only do that by hearing, and receiving your feedback for that. Also want to make everyone, our next session is going to be on Thursday, this Thursday, coming live from Philadelphia. We have another great group of panelists, including Chief Outlaw and Mayor Kenny of Philadelphia, as well as former Philadelphia 76er Willie Burton is going to be on that call, along with another awesome panel of young people. as I started off in all of this, I stated that, these persons that are viewing are coming from all across the world. And I didn't get a chance to ask his question, and I'm sorry, but we do have representation that is viewing this session right now from our Nigeria Africa PAL. And so even from Nigeria, we have young people and support that are participating and engaging with this discussion and dialogue. So again, I want to thank everybody for their participation. Please continue to pass the word. It's not just in the city that you're in. Young people, you can learn from young people in Philly, you can learn from young people in LA, New York, and whatever. Continue to come in and participate and engage and write your questions that you may have in that Q&A section and all as well. So with that, again, thank you everybody for participating and engaging, and look forward to hopefully seeing everybody again on Thursday for the next National PAL host from the Voices of Youth Community Town Hall Series. Thank you, you guys. Take care and be safe.
Thank you.